Okay, we're live. Hi everyone, thanks for joining this special STEM Women Hangout on Air. And we're doing this because our STEM Women page on Google Plus has reached 100,000 members. So we wanted to celebrate by just having the three of us. We are the people who run STEM Women, and we want to talk to you about why we do it, what are the issues we face, and yeah, just talk about why we do STEM Women. So we started this, I think I started this back in 2012. And it started with one of the posts that Rajini wrote for International Women's Day. And she wrote a post about all these Nobel Prize winning female scientists. And I remember leaving a comment along the lines of, why don't we know more women in our generation who are alive and they're not dead black and white pictures? Why don't we talk about them? So we had this idea of starting a database for women who are active in STEM fields, who write regularly about them, sort of as a visible role model, because everyone's role model is Marie Curie, and she's been dead for so many years. And Marie Curie is a great role model to have, but there's better women out there right now we can also talk about. Why aren't we talking about them? So I started this database, and I think it was back in February that Zuleyka joined us, so February this year, and we decided to ramp things up a bit with hosting these regular Hangouts on Air, having a website. We joined Twitter, and yeah, it's sort of blown up from there. But those were the humble origins of STEM Women, and yeah, that was how it started. And the reason I like doing this, the reason I do this, is because it's to create a safe space for women to talk about these issues that happen in the STEM fields. And also because it's, people think that there is equality now and we don't need to keep advocating for it, but clearly that's not true. Where can we talk about these issues? So that's why I do it. And what about you guys? Like, what do you gain from this?
Yeah, so I've always felt that I've been very fortunate and actually very privileged to have the support of my parents, my family, my husband, my friends, my colleagues in getting me to where I am now in my career as a scientist. And so that's made me particularly sensitive to people around me who are not so fortunate, who haven't had these privileges and these opportunities. And I feel that I am in a position now where I can mentor them, share my experiences, give them support, give them encouragement. And it's enormously satisfying thing to do. I have young women come up to me all the time and they say they remember something I said to them several years ago and I've forgotten it, but it did have an impact on them. It encouraged them, made them feel that they should continue going. So I've been doing this, I've been on social media for maybe 2 or 3 years, and it's been mostly a very rewarding experience. Yeah.
So for me, I've been writing about equality since I actually started my honours thesis. That was one of the things. I looked at gender, and I've been teaching gender and diversity. So in sociology, equality is a basic concept that we have, but what really motivated me to join STEM Women is that, well, first of all, not all the social sciences aren't equal. We still have problems in the social sciences we need to address. But I also think that a lot of the concepts and ideas and empirical evidence that we have kind of stays in the social sciences, and we don't do enough to ensure that it diffuses through the other sciences. So when Buddhini asked if I was interested in joining, I jumped on board because I do think that diversity in STEM is something that needs, all hands on deck, as we've written recently. So we need to collaborate across disciplines. So now that we've got some background about why we did this, we wanted to also just start a conversation about what we've done so far. And so we've been doing Hangouts on Air for 6 months, and we've done 12 videos. This will be our lucky 13th. We've actually spoken to 18 guests because we've done a couple of panel discussions. So we generally have 4 types of videos that we do. We have one that we call a series that we call In the Spotlight, and we've spoken to 6 women. So speaking to Buddhini's idea of not having these black and white pictures, we've been speaking to speaking to some really diverse women from from software engineering to material sciences, engineering, and behavioral sciences,
and all over the globe too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been quite interesting trying to coordinate time zones because Zuleyka's in Australia, I'm in the UK, Rajini's East Coast, USA, and yes, we're all talking at the same time. So that's been quite a challenge to organize, but we found a regular slot. It works. So
yes. Another series that we also produce is called Finding Solutions, and we've had 3 of them, and that's focusing on institutional approaches to bringing equity in STEM, and we focus as well on organisational, so practical measures that organisations can take to ensure that there's greater participation of women and to help success. So we've talked to people from a Google IT residency program. We've looked at what universities can do when working with postgrads, and we've also spoken to neuroscientist Professor Chad Forbes, who told us about the concept of stereotype threat that we also recently wrote about. And in our final 2 sets of videos that we do is we have a series on how men can help. So there we're wanting to speak to male leaders and to see how they mentor women and how they talk to their staff about diversity. And our final one is about STEM parents. And Rajini actually was part of that wonderful panel looking at how people...
That.
Yeah.
Yes. I also enjoyed the one we did on everyday sexism because it's such an important topic in terms of all the insidious ways, that we hear these comments. They're throwaway comments. They seem harmless on the face of it, but we carry them inside us for a very long time. And I think it's good to talk about it, not just for us women, but also for men to get some sense of how their comments may be interpreted. And I think Tommy was wonderful. Tommy Lung was wonderful in that session with us.
It's very important to recognize sexism because you can't combat something you don't recognize it as such. And most people think sexism is, staring at someone and going, hey, that dress looks nice on you. Maybe that's not even sexism. People think sexism is groping someone in a dark room, but it's more than that. It's these little insidious comments, and they eat away at people. And, a conversation needs to be had about those things. And that's that everyday sexism hangout, and the article we did as a follow-up was a really eye-opening experience for that.
Yeah, I think that the literature does consistently find that men don't always know what sexism is, and the everyday sexism is a really useful way to get at those, as Rajini was saying, there's little bits that kind of eat away at you, and it's not just that one comment here or that comment there. It's the sum total of constantly having to fend off, comments about your appearance, little comments about being overly confident that men don't get, and it's that combined with, as we always come back to, the institutional barriers that are there. Why didn't you get that promotion if you asked for it? Why are there more men in higher positions of authority? These things don't happen by accident.
I've also enjoyed the series of articles that we put out, like blog posts on our stemwomen.net website. The one that I smile about the most is the one on the as we call affectionately, the coconut boobs episode, or the proteomics story, that I'll let our readers find it, and it's really a treat to read. But so we do these standalone blog posts, and very recently we collaborated, the 3 of us, on responding to this myth that's persistently out there, that girls don't do well in math, that women don't like to go into STEM, that women's brains are wired differently, and there's
All
some
those
biology.
hormones.
Yes, it's all those hormones, and that really came about from a comment that I was told to me very recently at a conference where we were sitting together and relaxing after conference, and the subject of women in science came up, and my colleagues basically said, oh, women are just, they drop out of science because they're different. Their hormones make them different. And that was really a sort of facepalm moment, and it was very difficult to square with how wonderful these men are in every other way, and what good scientists they are, what good colleagues they are, but there's this persistent myth that somehow women just are different because of their hormones in terms of their STEM ability. So we came together and we wrote this article that just came out, right? Was it a couple of days ago? At Nature blogs, Soapbox blogs, and so that's been making its rounds, and I'm very proud of that collaboration with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, it's you know, that the comment that you had, Rajini, I think it's something that probably a lot of women have ever heard or have had to deal with, but it's also like the frightening thing for me, and part of my motivation also for us to collaborate on it, is that it's everywhere. You know, like it's in the news. When we sat down to write that piece, actually, there'd been like 2 or 3. It was men and women who are scientists saying that, you know, girls are just bored by science and math, or you know, they can't biologically handle it. And the fact is that, you know, research doesn't support that. We know that girls can do STEM. We know that they can exceed.
It was actually a researcher at the University of Glasgow who started that recent storm, for lack of a better word. I'm sure you were thinking, you knew what word I was trying to censor myself with. But yeah, he basically said we should give up on trying to achieve gender equality for the sciences because girls are just not interested. And you know, he published about this, and obviously all the newspapers in this country picked up on it. The Telegraph, the Daily Mail had a field day with it, and I just read that and I thought, no, like, you know, let's write a good rebuttal for this, because this is something that just keeps coming up. Let's write a reference piece that we don't have to keep having the same argument with people. We can point them at this now and say, go read if you have the reading comprehension skills to do it. So.
Yeah, and what I'm particularly proud of is that, particularly with Zuleyka's help, we were really able to reference our work very carefully with plenty of peer-reviewed, you know, studies with statistically significant data that very clearly back us up on what we're saying.
It's not an opinion piece.
It's not an opinion piece. It's not a fluff piece. It's really
it's a lit review.
Well supported, by the literature. Yeah.
And it's interesting, I think, as you say, it's something now that hopefully other people can point to, because we constantly come back to this point. It's redundant to keep having the argument of, is it happening, you know, isn't it happening? You know, sexism is a part of science. Unfortunately, it's part of science culture, and we need to move forward. Yes, in society, exactly. I mean, there's been some interesting conversations on that's been happening the past couple of days on social media that different threads that the 3 of us have been involved in. And, you know, at the end of the day, people who want to argue against it, they're arguing from usually, you know, using personal anecdotes. I know a woman and she's doing okay, or I know a girl and she doesn't like math, or whatever it is that they're saying. And at the end of the day, you know, data is going to trump these individual experiences, and women's experiences do matter in this space more than men. So it's funny how it's often men who want to continue to argue against this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been very interesting responding to some of the comments. And you know, what's difficult is when you hear these kinds of comments and you hear people telling me that I'm a man hater, for example, And I question why I'm doing this. This just today I was thinking, why did I post this? There are better ways for me to spend my Sunday, honestly, than to deal with comments and people like this. And then it's just really nice when other people speak out and people have private messaged us, as I think we know, and they've publicly posted and they say thank you for speaking out, and things like, we commend you on your Herculean patience. So one of my friends told me that in private, and I think that makes you feel better. And one of our colleagues commented and said, I didn't even know there was a term for this, like stereotype threats, and this speaks to what I've been feeling. I feel this, what you've written has validated how I felt all this time, and I think that is what makes this worth it.
Yeah, and I think doing science publicly as a woman is especially challenging, and I think I mean, there's plenty of amazing women writing about science, but as soon as you start to write about inequality in science, that's when things can get really out of hand. And I think part of the tactic, and there's a wide spectrum. It's it's easy to just point to the trolls who come out and just say outlandish things to get a rise out of you, but there are, as we're saying, people who think that they support equality and who are wonderful colleagues otherwise, who will fight you. And other women see this, and I think the tactic that people need to understand, they're sort of creating this environment that makes it hard for women to speak up. So when women do share their stories, it's important to listen.
Yeah.
And we've, among the three of us, come up with a number of strategies, and I think that's worth talking about here, of how we've created the space. And one of the things we do is that we'll have a private community, or we're able to message each other, discussing, these things. And so when you feel particularly barraged by comments, it's great for one of the others to say, oh, you're doing a great job, this is good, you're absolutely right, and sort of or be able to send an SOS out to one of you and say, I can't handle this anymore, I'm done with this conversation, and then someone else can step in and take over.
I think it's very important to have that support system, at least behind the scenes. I know that if I were to deal with this sort of negative comments and constantly keep talking about this topic only to keep getting this pushback, I would burn out within 2 weeks. I know I can't keep doing it. I'll resort to posting photos of cute bunnies or something just to recover from that, because who hates bunnies? But every time you start talking about inequality, it's just such an uphill task. And having that support network, and not just the two of you, there's so many members in our community who consistently follow our posts. There's Michael Verona, there's Gary, there's Tommy, there's Michael Habib, who's written a guest post for us. So we have all these really strong allies, both male and female, who support us, and that sort of makes me feel, when I have those days where I'm like, why do I bother? It really helps to have that, yes, this is why I do it. And I think we've all, cultured that, either individually or through STEM women.
And I think it's also important that women remember that it's okay to step away. Like, you don't have to defend yourself against every crazy comment that's thrown at you. And, so I think one really good strategy that I love, other than obviously the three of us being supportive of one another, is that we shut down comments. So we sometimes our posts reach what's hot on Google+, which means that it's sort of going out to everybody broadly, and that's when we do get a lot of trolling, because otherwise our community, for a huge, I mean, for 100,000, over 100,000 people, our posts, there's great discussion and very civil, and I often, our members make me think, so it's a wonderful community. But when it reaches broadly, that's when you do get trolls. And so we just, the three of us, are in constant communication, and if somebody can't watch a post, we just close comments for, even if it means for 2 hours or overnight. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to just step away sometimes.
Yeah,
Right.
and this also happens with YouTube videos because when a video gets shared on Google Plus, because of the YouTube comment integration, and we all know YouTube commenters are the best, kindest, most polite people on the internet. So we get the best of the internet suddenly in our safe community.
The cream, the creme de la creme. Yes.
Exactly.
Right. And I think the other thing I've learned from my own posts as well is to keep the comment stream really clean and to prune it of all. First of all, if there's something really outrageous, get rid of it, block the person. That's fine. That's easy to. Those are easy to pick out. But even the inane ones, like "Hi, how are you?" and "Will you be my friend?" type idiotic comments. It's good to get rid of them because I think they establish a kind of precedence. If somebody sees that rubbish, they feel somehow empowered to post more. And so I think if it does mean that I don't post something unless I know that I'm going to be around for a while to babysit the comments. I never post and run. That's the worst thing you can do. And we often advise other women who post in our larger community, the science community, Science and Google Plus community, that we also moderate not to do that. Just be watchful of the comments, at least for a little while until you set a tone,
All three of us are moderators at we call it our sister community, the Science on Google Plus community, and there's way more pushback there whenever we post about these gender or inequality issues compared to when we do it through our STEM Women page. And we often get comments from people asking, is this science? Why are we talking about this? Science is just physics or biology. Why are we talking about these sociological issues and things like that? So it's been good to, be quite strict about the way we moderate because it's our community, our rules. It's not just the three of us. We have other moderators as well. I think it's 10 moderators in total, right? Correct? Yeah. So they're from various disciplines and, they're very supportive of us as well. It's been quite interesting seeing the difference between the two, and what we hope is to get Science on Google Plus onto the same type of safety, for lack of a better word, as we have with STEM Women. And that means posting more about these topics, being around to babysit and moderate those discussions. Basically, we treat our posts like a dinner party. We know what's acceptable for a guest to come and behave. We are not okay with someone getting drunk and throwing up on the carpet and making a mess of it. Those people are out when they do that. Simple as that.
I think I've grown out of those sorts of parties. Yeah, so, I would have absolutely no tolerance for them. But the other thing that it contrasts with the larger Science on Google Plus community, which is something like 400,000 members now, is that unfortunately it's very difficult for us as women to comment as moderators on a post because we are immediately seen as elitist. We get challenged, and the sad truth is that I really don't have the guts or the patience or the interest of doing that anymore. So I will sign on as our page, so that's just a logo, right? And there's
It's
no
more
gender
anonymous.
attached. It's an anonymous, way, and then I say what I have to say. And there's quite a difference in the way comments are received from women like us versus either the male moderators or this, genderless logo. And one of our colleagues really put it well, and he said, well, the reason is because you have 2 X chromosomes, that's really it. So unfortunately, that does disadvantage us a bit. But it's the safer and more convenient way to deal with moderating.
I think also, the one thing that I do like is that whenever any of us gets overly tired about it, it's good to have, as we've been saying, we've got that backup. But we haven't given up. So that's I think it is easy to get discouraged, particularly if you're just starting out or if you're just overwhelmed. And you know, we're all volunteers. We get nothing, nothing out of doing this other than,
yes.
you know, our love of science. And it takes up a lot of time, you know, of our free time. But we've persevered. And I think, you know, the tactic of people continually saying, I don't want to see these types of discussions. You know, first of all, not talking about something doesn't address it, and it's not going to go away because you're not talking about it. It just means that you know, what I see happening with that pushback is that there are people who have never had to deal with it before and don't want to have to confront it. They don't want to think that maybe they're part of the problem. And you know, if somebody's taking it personally, they've got to look at themselves because we don't attack people. And the conversation needs to keep happening. So I would say to women watching, you know, we've created, definitely STEM Women is a safe place for us to discuss issues that matter to women. And we also have, you have the ability to post to our blog if anybody watching wants to share their story, or you know, you want to write about women in science and you want to use studies or your personal experiences. You can write as yourself, and we also offer the opportunity for you to write anonymously if that helps. But you know that STEM Women is a place where we'll do the fighting for you, and you know, particularly if you haven't jumped in yet into social media, you've got our support, and we hope more women will participate.
Yeah, it's less scary when you're doing it as part of a team. And you know, if you have a particularly harrowing story to share and you're scared about pushback, don't worry, because we deal with those trolls, and you know, the really nasty, juicy ones, we highlight them and make fun of them in private, so we can have a laugh about that.
So we thought that we might also address why the three of us have actually chosen Google Plus, because all of us use different social media. And you know, I'm very active on Twitter, and I was very active across several social media, and Tumblr in particular is very addictive, and you know, it's fantastic for social science. There's some really amazing students, particularly writing amazing social science, but a lot of it is geared towards students, so it's really great and I want to keep reading that. But I got to a point where I wanted to speak with my colleagues who were experiencing similar sorts of issues, being practitioners, and I also wanted to have a place where I could meet other scientists from other fields, because I've done a lot of interdisciplinary work, and Google Plus is amazing for that. The people that I've met on Google Plus, you know, it's so enriching. I have learnt so much from being on, just reading posts and interacting with people. You know, Google Plus is funny because women are a tiny minority. It's largely male. But there are fantastic colleagues on there.
Yeah, I like Google Plus because I think I like to write sort of what I call microblogs, and it's perfect for that type of writing. You know, so you can pair a few paragraphs with a really catchy image, or with a GIF or something, or a video, and you can really get your message across. So Twitter for me is, I guess I talk a lot, so 140 odd characters is not quite it, although I am getting the hang of it. And for people watching, I am your in chief for the hangouts.
Yes, every single hangout we have, Rajini is the person who live tweets.
So I am getting the hang of Twitter, and of course Facebook is just for grandparents and friends and old school mates that I have nothing in common with now. But it's not at all very rewarding. I think Google Plus is just intellectually a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same for me. Twitter, I never really understood. I'm getting better at it, but I just find I spend so much time composing something and then trimming it to make it fit the damn word count, and I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying. And Google Plus doesn't have that problem, and you know, I like the audience in Google Plus. With Facebook, if I share something, because most of my friends from school are on it, they don't really care that, you know, I share something about the molecular mechanisms of cancer. Whereas on Google Plus, people are actually interested, they want to learn more, and they follow me for that reason. So that's what makes Google Plus different. The audience is different, and therefore I get to be different rather than, you know, Facebook, which is just for food pictures or baby pictures or something like that. So
yeah, you know, we've talked a bit about some of the difficulties and challenges that we've faced, but really, STEM Women is amazing, and the work that we do as science moderators, despite the difficulties, if a woman's watching and still sort of thinking, oh, I don't want to have to deal with those negative aspects, you know, that it's tough, but if you get, like we said, if you get some friends behind you, you know, now you know the three of us, and you know you can come to STEM Women as well. It's worth it, because otherwise science is largely, for most of our history, has been dictated to the public via intermediaries. You know, it's been through the media, and the media, there are some great journalists out there, but there's a lot of trash, there's a lot of hype, and you know, if you're a scientist, it pays, it will pay off to write about what matters to you. And you know, a lot of us do very specialized science, and it doesn't get any airtime at the best of times. So it's worth it. And don't let the negative, scary stories put you off.
Absolutely, it's so beneficial because it helps you connect with other scientists. But for me, what I find really rewarding is that it helps me connect with the science again. Because when I write an article about, you know, a paper that came out, it reminds me why I like science and why I enjoy writing about these things, because I read it and I'm like, oh, cool, they did this experiment and they got this really cool result. Let me share that. If I'm just stuck in the lab with the 50th Western blot that didn't work and I'm wondering why the hell did I choose this, you know, this is a good antidote to that frustration. So that's yet another reason why more scientists should engage in outreach instead of relying on the Daily Mail to get your science news. You know?
Right. And I learn as much as I inform, you know, so it goes both ways. It's I usually pick topics that I'm interested in, so it's a great excuse for me to learn something and sort of just keep me well informed of what's going on in science. So.
We are sort of almost really up for time, but we did want to highlight that, you know, we've got a lot of really interesting hangouts on air coming up. You know, we're talking to a few different organisations that work with women and girls. We'll be looking also at doing a special Ada Lovelace hangout on air, looking at science publishing. We've got a hangout coming out on how the importance of having women scientists highlighted in Wikipedia and how women can get involved with that. And we've got some more of those profiles with women from neuroscience and various other backgrounds coming up.
Yes, we're not stopping here just because we hit 100,000. So thank you everyone for watching. Our next hangout is in a week's time because we've kind of been off sync because we missed last week. And yes, we hope you can join us. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No,
but just thank you to our community as well.
Yes, thank you for our community for supporting what we do, because yes, you guys are a big part of why we do this as well. So thank you for watching and supporting what we do.
Okay, bye.
Bye.